Okay, it started.
Alright, so good evening, Mr. Teoh. I represent University Malaya students from the editing course. So we are having assignments where we have to interview editor in a industry.
Mm-hmm.
So we will just directly go straight forward lah. So I will introduce myself first. My name is Jun Chan. My full name in Chinese will be Chan Pei Yi. So
Okay.
there is a Rini Yap Yiling, Sarah Nohana, and also Emira Aisha.
Okay.
So let's start. Maybe we will start from your background, like your name, your age, or maybe your working
Age also,
experience.
men are
Um,
sensitive about the age.
okay, we will confidentially, but you can choose to answer or not lah.
Okay, I'm in my 50s already. I started as a journalist as young as when I was, I think, about 21 or 22. Yeah, yeah. So background with mainstream media at New Straits Times. Then I was actually with WWF heading the media unit for about 8 years before going back into the mainstream media with the Star for 2 years. And then after that, starting SJ Echo, which is now about 17 years. Yeah. Nobody wants to employ me, so I'm still stuck with SJ Echo.
Listen,
All right,
SJ
all
info
right.
is great. Don't worry.
Yeah. So, wow, there's quite a long experience over there.
Yeah.
So, what type of media you working with? Like a print media, or is online, or is broadcast, or is social media?
Okay. SJ Echo is actually both print and electronic. So basically, we have a once a month. Okay, let me just explain. SJ Echo is a community platform which deals with a lot of community issues, but we don't touch politics. Yeah. So we actually keep politics out of the topics on a day-to-day basis or even on a monthly basis. So that's why we print once a month, because it concentrates on basically community issues, community initiatives, and all that. In fact, I was in SS19, 7 flats just now at lunchtime, following up on a report that we did 2 weeks ago, and nobody has taken any action. So went in to go and chuchuk, and now everybody's waking up, and everybody's. I think tomorrow they are going to go and clean up. There's going to be a meeting for enforcement, etc., tomorrow. So that's what we do. Sometimes stir the hornet's nest to get people moving. Um, so we are a physical edition once a month, and apart from that, it is on social media, on Facebook and on website. Yeah, as and when the news unfolds. Let's say if there's a fire or there's an accident that we want to report on and everything, then we go to straight to social media because it is then current. Yeah.
Mm.
Instead of waiting 1 month or a few weeks later, and then if somebody died today, 3 weeks later we write about somebody died 3 weeks ago. So we have an e-edition of the physical paper, which then comes out a few days before the paper comes out. So then we are actually promoting that for people to actually follow, so that they can actually read it, on their computer, on their phones, on their tab, and everything. So that started actually very much during the MCO, when everybody was locked in at home. We stopped our print edition to encourage people to not try and come out and tell the police, I'm coming out to pick up SJ Echo. And that's a lousy excuse. They're supposed to be at home. So we kept it we started off the e-edition then, and then resumed physical edition I think about 6 months after, when things were getting better and people could move around a little bit. So then we started the physical edition for the aunties and uncles around, to find an excuse to come out for some fresh air and a copy of the paper once a month.
All right. All right. Thank you for the answer. But I was wondering, is there any skill or qualifications to become an editor in your field?
Well, in a community scenario, you have to be a little bit busybody. You have to be a little bit crazy. But Yeah, I mean, obviously, tertiary education is important. Yeah, especially in this time and age. I guess I started off very differently. I was doing my law degree, then saw an advertisement in the New Straits Times looking for part-timers, freelance writers. You used to call it stringers, where you come in and work as part-timers. During my semester break, I was on my second year in law school, and during the semester break, I enjoyed myself so much. I remember my first assignment was actually in UM, of I think one of the societies there that was doing some event, and the student leader asked me, "So, what do you need to know? What information do you want?" And I said, "This is my first day writing. You tell me what you want to tell me because I don't know what to ask you." Yeah. So I remember that in your Dewan Tunku Chancellor, that was the event that they were preparing, and I went in. So after a few months, I actually enjoyed it so much, and I found my calling for journalism that I actually abandoned my law degree and went straight into journalism. And basically, on the job, lah, learned it on the job and everything. But obviously, your lecturers will not want to hear that. The lecturers will want you to go through your education and make sure that you do well. Especially Renee, the father will kill me if suddenly say, "Uncle, you never went to university, never finished." So I want to go and do it already now. And the father will come knocking at my door. SS19 is not very far away from where I am. So so better not. So the idea would be actually get your basic degree.
All right.
Uh, but
Sure.
but you have to have an inquisitive, curious mind. If you're shy, you got to get rid of that, because it journalism brings you media line brings you into different scenarios. You have to be very curious, to a large extent, very capoti, yeah, busybody. You have to have a curious mind. You have to start thinking differently, and that's basically how it is. I mean, take the example of the issue at hand today. It When we heard of it a month ago, uh, obviously it was a complaint from a resident, and we went in. We took half a day to walk around the whole area, looking at what was being highlighted to us and seeing whether it is something that was justifiable for us to blow into a bigger story, where it's about 300 over 400 units there. It's a low cost flats in SS19. And the issues, the problems, the procedures, the challenges, the obstacles, what we had to actually then break it down into what's short-term solution, what you can handle short-term, mid-term, long-term. So obviously, not everything we will be putting in. We will have to prioritize what is important to highlight, what would make people sit up and take action. The smaller issues can be handled later on. The longer term issues have to be, you have to look into the legal side of it, the procedures, the SOPs, what is already in place for things to move. But problems like illegal dumping, CCTV not working to monitor things and everything can be settled there and then. So we highlighted. Unfortunately, after 2 weeks, nobody moved. The recycling spot became bigger. What we took photographs of became bigger. It was not clear. So today we went in after lunch, after enjoying pan mi at 1906 area. I went over, just took a drive around and walked around a little bit, and said, "Oh, nothing has moved." So I came back, put the story together, put it online, and fired away, and send it straight to the mayor, send it straight to the community leaders, and say, "What's happening?" 2 weeks after, your recycling spot, which has become a rubbish dump, is bigger. So a community platform is very different from a newspaper, mainstream media. Mainstream media highlights it, maybe can find solution, but it's sometimes to highlight it. For a community platform, we have to actually engage, get involved, get our hands dirty, get right in. Like tomorrow, the local council has called for a meeting and they said, Teoh, can you come for the meeting also? So this is not the typical media role where we go and sit in a meeting. It should be more like when you want to do something, tell us, we'll be there to cover the event. But this is now we're being called in to join them for the meeting to discuss how we can better do it. Yeah. So the community platform is a very different approach. I guess there's no template there to follow. There's no blueprint to follow because we are the only one in the country. Yeah.
All right, sure. So you keep yourself updated to the trend in the media industry is based on when people are calling you in. So you are going to get the news, and also another things is to keep busybody. In other words, so is that these two ways are keeping you updates to the trends in the media
No,
industry? No,
you
not
have to
only
keep
that.
you have to keep abreast with current issues, national issues. How does the national issue affect you at the local level? You have to keep reading. You have to monitor. You have to watch out for what's happening at the national level. What the housing minister says can affect us on the ground. What is it that he says affects us, right? So if the domestic trade minister says RON 95 is going to go up in price tomorrow, how does this affect people on the ground here? The traders, the retirees, the residents, students who drive, you know? So all these things are there. So you have to actually have it at your fingertips, knowing what's happening around you. And from there, you look for angles. You don't wait for, I mean, if you wait for just to cover Gotong Royong, makan-makan for Deepavali, Christmas, everything, the paper becomes an entertainment paper, right? It's just, oh, they're having a party here. Oh, having a party here. We go makan, makan. No, the idea is because I come from the background of mainstream media. I used to cover environment, and I used to look for a lot of stories which are controversial, illegal logging, unsustainable development, all these things. So when I was in the Star, I was doing special reports covering mainly the environment and our impact, human impact on the environment. So it can be illegal logging somewhere in Belum, or encroachment or clearing of land more in somewhere in the wilds of Sabah, protected area now getting threatened. We go in. What are the issues? It's not just about saying, "Oh, somebody's chopping a tree." No, look at the issues at hand. Industry. What's the industry down there? Plantations. What's the conflict? Human-animal conflict. What is it that we can do to reduce all these things? What can we bring? What can we do to bring forward a better idea of SDG lah, huh? Sustainable Development Goals that we call it now lah. In those days, it didn't have a name lah, huh? So those are the things that you look at in terms of making sure that you actually know what you want to achieve before you start writing. Yeah. So it's a call to action rather than just writing a story, writing a love story, writing a love letter to the girlfriend or boyfriend without telling him or her what you want. No point. I see your smile. I like it very much. But what is it that you want? You want to go out on a date with me, or you are just going to tell me something nice? So you have to have your objectives, what you want to achieve, and you work towards that. Yeah.
All right. My section introduction has done. I will pass to Sarah.
Now Sarah
Okay.
looks very tense. You relax. You relax already.
Well, my one's basically about your editorial processes since you are editing publications, right?
Mm.
So I want to know what is your like typical editorial process before you publish a content? Like what would you do from the beginning to the end before you finally like press publish?
Okay. Uh, if you are with a mainstream media with a daily circulation, then every morning starts with God knows how many pages which are empty. one of the editors used my editor used to tell me that, he said our job when we come in the morning, report in the morning, is to fill up the 30 to 60 pages which are now empty by the end of the day. Okay, it's just the same principle for a monthly edition, where the month starts with an empty pages, and my job is then to look for stories which are interesting to actually fill it up with. Obviously, as a community paper, it's a little bit different. People would ask me, "How big is your team?" Okay, and my answer would be, "I have three. Their names are me, myself, and I."
So it's just you.
Yes,
It's just you.
yes.
Don't you need other opinions when it comes to, writing out the publication?
Well, if it's news, we will already be interviewing people. We will already be doing fact finding
Yeah.
and verifying things. If there are certain things that, I mean, there are people out there who want to try and con you also with all sorts of their own distorted perspective of things.
Yeah, yeah.
You have to then know where to check and how to check. I mean, with over the 17 years, we know there are people who try to con you to get free publicity and everything and tell you this, but you can actually check and then go back to that. No, you don't have the approval for planning yet. Why are you telling me that your setup there has got the approval to proceed? No, your area is outside the YB's jurisdiction. Why are you saying that the YB is coming to launch your event? So those things can be verified very easily. Facts and figures can be derived. If you press the right buttons, you can get the information that you want. It's a matter of calling your source of information around out there. Obviously, working for so long, the contacts and the networking with the local council, with the police, with the bomba, everything is there. Like last night there was another accident in a vehicle actually literally flew into USJ2 while traveling from along Persiaran Tujuan. That's an accident-prone area. But the fact that the car actually went and landed up right at the gate of a bungalow tells you how fast he was. But I wasn't there. But I had people on the ground there who happened to see it and immediately sent me photographs and information and all that. And then we verify officially to get an official story with the fire department, because they are the ones on the scene also to come and check and everything. So those are the things to verify. Yeah.
Oh,
So you need that process.
Mm-hmm. I get that. So that's more on like the fact checking and it actually goes to my next question. Why do you think that's important? Why do you think it's important for you to ensure that you have the right facts and research throughout the editorial work when you're finding out what happened? Why is it important that it's true?
If you put out the wrong facts, it's fake news. Yeah, you can get sued. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So
I was
I mean,
gonna say it's not gonna hurt
just like
anyone.
I think a month ago, at a similar spot, there was an accident. An old man, the driver, died in the car. Okay, yeah, and the wife escaped with minor injuries. She could still stand and everything. But then when it happened, people started speculating. Social media was a buzz, saying, why did he speed? Why did he do this? Why did this and that? And we were like, hold on, let's check first. Because of the fact that I also am involved in the Subang Jaya Community Ambulance Service, which responded to the case, I could verify whether the old man died or didn't die, and what were the injuries like and everything. Then we went back to the fire department, who went to rescue, to extract him from the car, to get the facts and everything. And then from there, we laid out the information as we got it from verifiable source. Not from the motorcyclist who stopped by there and saw and said, uncle was speeding. My uncle must have been speeding, And, how come uncle died? Auntie didn't die, kind of thing. So it's all this gossip is good for information, but verifying needs to be done for everything that you go on. Of course, I mean, if you're doing coverage on a Deepavali celebration or Christmas celebration by the community, there's not much information to verify. It's just about describing what it is at the event. Yeah, what happened with photographs, because I do my own photographs. So I know what I've taken. So based on the photographs, I know what I'm going to write in terms of describing things. But in terms of news, it has to be verified. It cannot be, I mean, somebody complaining to you about illegal dumping, problems with the drainage and everything, you take their word for it and just run the story. No. You have to go down on the ground to see. Yeah. And to know what is happening, to verify it, to basically record evidence. When you're taking photographs, it's recording evidence to back up your approach for the story. Yeah, just like now you're recording our session, so that's evidence to say that
Yeah.
Mr. Teoh said this. He didn't say that.
True, true.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So when you're writing, let's say you want to publish an article or some of the sort, how do you maintain that publication voice? You know, like how there's these different types of writing where there's when we read a storybook, the writing is like telling a story. Don't want to lead towards that. You want to lead to the publication kind of voice. How do you like tell yourself the story in your formal ways first and then type it out? How do you keep
Hmm. You have to remember that when you are handling a news piece,
Mhm.
uh, it's not storytelling anymore. It is not a thesis anymore. It's not a love letter anymore. It's straight facts. But you also have to understand the generation now who don't read much,
Yeah,
right?
true.
Okay, but you have to then know who your target audience, your readers are. If you're writing to a scientific community, the main points that you want to highlight are normally at the back of the report. I mean, when I was with WWF, the scientific officers would have their reports and say, "Tio, I've taken the initiative to write the press release for you, and you have a look and see." And I'm like, "Press release, 3 full pages? My goodness, you're writing a thesis or what?" And I'm like, "This is too long, and you are writing gibberish. You're just storytelling too much. There's no main point there." Yeah. Um, we do a basically a SWOT analysis. We go by the 4 Ws and 1 H. Why, what, where, when, how. Right. So when a 3 pager comes to you and as the media officer and you go like, there's no story there. There's no call for action there. So my I would just go back to the officer and say, "Can you give me a full report, please?" And that's like about 2 inches thick, yeah. And he goes, like, "Here you go." Okay, I said, "Give me about an hour." Okay, half an hour. I go back to him and say, "Okay, it's done." And they're like, "How in the world did you do it?" I said, "Oh, very easy. You guys write from the back one. Your 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 recommendations and your resolutions and your what you want to achieve are actually at the back of your report. Recommendations to do this, to do this, to do this. The rationale is always in front, but the actual objective that they want to achieve is actually at the back. So you know who your readers are, and you know who your writers are. So where news is concerned, you keep it short. And if you know your readership, they like to see more photographs than read. In fact, when we do stories on accidents and all sorts, when we put it up online, a lot of netizens, citizen, well, I would say, show off netizens will come trying to tell you, why are you writing this way? You know, and you should write it this way. They will comment, and I'm like, are you writing it or I'm writing it? Kind of thing. So it's that kind of thing that they would think that they know better, but the idea is that we know that the readers don't actually read a lot.
Mm.
You will probably read, if I write a 10 paragraph story, you'll probably read about 3 to 4 paragraphs. and make your own conclusion already.
Yeah.
So if I
Okay.
know that, those 3 to 4 paragraphs are where I pack everything in.
Ah,
My header can be my title or header can be very naughty. Even the police actually normally, the deputy OCPD will say, your headlines are very cheeky. I say that's the way to make you read. To
yeah.
pick up and look into the story, and then when you read, it's a lot more subtle, a lot more straight to the point. Whereas our headlines are the ones that actually intrigue
Yeah,
your
yeah.
curiosity. It makes you want to like, hey, what's that, huh? Kind of thing. So that's how you do it. So you need to know who you're writing for.
Mm, okay.
That's the first obstacle. Are you writing for children? Are you writing for senior citizens? Are you writing for adults? Or are you writing for Gen Zs? If you're writing for Gen Zs, you better write 2 paragraphs. Your facts must be in the first 2 paragraphs because they're more
Yeah,
visual than text, right?
true, true.
June is smiling there. I hit the jackpot already when I said
She's
it.
relating so much. Okay, and that's all the questions from my side for the
Okay.
editorial process. I'll pass it to Renee now.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm gonna
Okay.
mostly ask about challenges and skills being an editor. So my first question would be, what are some of your biggest challenge when you face as an editor?
Biggest challenges. Never write on an empty stomach. So ask your dad what's he cooking tonight.
That one I also don't know what is cooking to that.
Yeah. Um, Biggest challenge. Well, every day is a challenge. Yeah. I mean, um, being what with what I do, there are days when it's quiet. There are days when you have a blank screen in front of you. Your mind is blank. But it's also stressful in the sense that you know there are issues out there. It's at the back of your mind that you need to follow up on this, you need to follow up on this and that. You say for the last 2 weeks, it's been SS19. The moment we hit the story out on the front page, I'm monitoring and I'm waiting to see how it develops from there. It never did because nobody took action. Although the information was actually, I know because I had conversations just now with MPSJ directors and everything and everybody else. We know that the information went to the different departments to take action, but they didn't. So the director said to me, I'm so glad you poked again. I said, yeah, I had to light fire in your backside, then only then it moves again, right? No choice, but that's how it is. But hold on, Chloe, can I call you back sekejap? I'm on a Zoom meeting with uni students interview. I call you back sekejap. I know got some development. I call you back in a while. Okay, okay, bye. See, got story coming. This one is a, this is a
So we know you're a
controversial.
busy man. You're a busy man.
Yeah.
No, it's a controversial story, so I must remember to call her back. So,
Okay.
you need to know what exactly you want first. The main challenge is actually setting in your mind, like I mean, when we are running a paper, is setting your mind what you want to actually project for the coming month. For a daily paper, the bosses decide. Yeah, unless you have a very good story where the bosses will tell you how many pages you need for the front page onwards. We've had that in the start when we did a special report on the lost city of Kota Gelangi in Johor. We had this really good story, which we basically the colleague and mine, myself, the late colleague who passed away already, we dived into the story with all the scientific information that this researcher had. We literally tore it apart to see where we could do it, how we could tackle the story, because it is a story that is still a myth. Yeah. Uh, but we did. We broke it into so many parts, and each part actually grew on its own. And then we finally, with all that, after a month's research, we had to decide which one to go first to break the story, because we knew that if we let the story out, the moment we let the story out, the other newspapers would actually be already chasing. And it's not local newspapers will chase, because this will be foreign media all the way from UK and everything will be chasing. Yeah. And we had a stockpile of stories for 2 weeks every day to run. So that's how, when you set your objectives, you set exactly your strategy on how you want to do it, like a long-term campaign. You sit back and watch other people panic while you just let go of stories. Every morning you go in, the editors will say, how many pages you need from the front page onwards? I'm like, 3 pages enough. You sure? Maybe I can give you 5 pages. There's a front page to the page 5, they allocate to you every day. And I'm like, no, too much already, too much, 3 enough. This is the edit. Normally it's the other way around, where you try to push for the editor to give you more space, but this is the editor actually asking you for more, to give you more space. And that's how. So it depends on what you want to do. If it's a long campaign, if it's a short story, of course you face a lot of obstacles for long stories, like long campaigns like this. It's like you work till you start your work at 9 o'clock in the morning, you finish at about 12 at night, or sometimes even 2 in the morning. Yes, you're still there because the information, your interviews are right to India, to Cambridge and everything, all across the world, just to get the information and verify the information that you already have in hand before you type it out into a story. Yeah, that's mainstream media. Subang Jaya is a little bit less complicated, where if you run a story like, what we just did, and today we poked again, then you get calls from the local council, you get calls from the community leaders, and then our state assembly woman will message you and say, actually, this one, like that. I said, yes, I know. It's a matter of timing. Long-term, short-term, mid-term. What do we tackle first? Cannot that we expect everything to be settled in one day. We phase it out. What can be achieved easily to the more difficult ones. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
So after understand the challenge that you face, so will you sometimes face a disagreement with writers or other stakeholders, and how do you manage it when the conflicts happen?
If you verify your information with the people who talk to you and give you the information, and you write it accordingly and don't twist it too much, you wouldn't face that problem. You see, I use the example of the SS19 flats. The person who complained to me is living in there, and basically, because of the years of experience, and you know what the issues are. I'm not there with a notepad writing every word he says. I'm already mentally absorbing what the issues are and everything. So the moment I sit down and write the story, I would have already, by the time from his place, from the flats there home, I would already more or less digest and be able to actually place it, which one is more important to highlight. You see? And then once I sit down, you start punching in really what it is, where it is, what it is that you want to highlight. And then if the issue is too multifaceted, too many issues there, prioritize the main issues. The smaller issues, the newspaper always has that sidebar. It's a side story by itself where you lay down all the information. Assuming that your reader cannot digest so fast, digest what you're writing in text format, you put it in a diagram or in a sidebar, we call it, laying down point by point the facts or the problem at hand. So that when they get drowned in there and they get confused, they look at the sidebar, oh, these are the issues. It's news in brief. So it makes it easier. Yeah. So your objective is to try and write stories which, especially for news, is that your source has given you. Don't stray too far. If it's a man that got murdered, don't say it's a woman. Like the police will tell you, recent raid, they arrested 2 men, recovered 300 over kilos of shabu worth 11 million. You don't turn it around and say, oh, 11 kilos of shabu and then 300 over million recovered. If you get that facts wrong, then you should be shot and thrown into jail as well. But information is very important. So if you stick to that information, but how you present it is up to you. So you won't get into that. You won't get too much into conflict. There will be people who will agree with what you write anyway. Yeah, nobody would think the same as you would. Yeah, but the idea is because we function as a news platform, the idea is to try to be fast as possible. I don't know whether any of you remembered the incident where I mean it's in national news also, when the fireman was actually killed, in Subang Jaya during the temple dispute a couple of years back. I think before the MCO. We had the video footage of the fire engine going into the site. On site, somebody took it and reversing to escape the crowd. We got it from a verifiable, from a close source on the ground, and we ran that. That became evidence in court when they were investigating the death of the fireman. And that itself on Facebook had, after about almost a month, I think, after we ran that story, that video, it went to about 1 million views. Of course, different people had different opinions of what happened. And of course, they kutuk here, kutuk there. We had to monitor because a lot of racial slurs were made, a lot of accusations were made, and we had to go in and warn people. Look, this story is being watched by the police. You want to write whatever you want to write as a comment. If you're not careful, you start doing all this nonsense, you answer to the police. We are not. We are not going to take responsibility for your comments. Yeah. So those are the things. What to use, it depends on your instincts also. Whether you should use it or not. Not everything is usable, especially when it deals with children. It deals with sexual violence, all these things. Sensitivity, road accident, somebody dies, you don't go and publish the dead man or dead woman on the road, lying on the road, and putting it up on your social media. You imagine, you put yourself in the shoes of the family of the deceased. Would you want to see your father or mother photograph lying on the road on social media? So common sense comes in when you're putting the story together so that you don't come into too much dispute or discussions or arguments. Yeah.
Okay. So my last question would be, what is your important qualities or skill to be a successful editor?
Crazy. I guess nobody sets out to be an editor. Yeah. People like myself, I would say, I love the job of looking for the stories, to being out there, not knowing what I'm going to get. That's the whole idea of being a journalist. You can be sent for an assignment, or you can actually look for your own stories. At that point in the mainstream media, I was looking for my own stories. I had to look for stories and not rely on whatever assignments the bosses gave me. Bosses gave me one boring lah. You have to cover prime minister, deputy prime minister, minister is like, oh, boring. So boss said, you look for your stories and you suggest the stories to us. We'll give you the time. If you need to travel, you travel. This and that, everything, all that. So those were the days when I used to drive alone, outstation, looking for my story. Heading for the destination, how many hours drive into the interiors and this and that, looking for stories. Flying over to Sarawak, traveling to the interiors with a fisheries officer to look at the hatchery for ikan terubuk. Where people said that the population was on the decline, and if people harvest too much, this species is going to go. But when we arrived at the fisheries hatchery, we saw like how small the fish fry was. But then at the jetty, we saw so much being brought in, the fish. I mean, like, I thought you said population going down, but I see so many hundreds and hundreds of kilos coming in of the fish. So all these things, but the risk of losing the fish is there. So what do you tell people when you write the story? It's even like shark's fin soup. How do you tell people not to take shark's fin soup? When you get sent to an assignment in a hotel who was doing shark's fin promotion. Yeah, I was saying it's a shark's fin soup review. Shark's fin double boiled in old coconut with ginseng. And it's the restaurant, the hotel inviting you to write about their promotion. But my editor turned it around and said, hey, with your environment background, I want you to do it the other way around. You mentioned the promotion, but you write about the risks or the dangers or the threats that sharks now face because of shark's fin consumption. And those days, no internet. Those days, is you want to do research, you go into the library, it's all newspapers filed up, okay? And you go through page by page looking for your stories, okay? By the end of the day, you don't touch your face because your hands are all newsprint, all ink on it. If you start scratching your face, then your face also will be black. So those days, it's not at the click of the button you get your information. Yeah, you go into the library and you really dig into the pages and you look for your angle in creating the awareness. But that was a feature story. Okay, we turn it into a feature story to write about why you should stop. But at the same time, talk about our experience enjoying this double boiled shark's fin soup in old coconut. That's how you find different ways of doing things. Yeah.
Okay.
Cannot confuse you or not?
Understand.
Don't understand. Your father has to find shark's fin soup for us.
No worry, he will find vegetarian.
Nyonya style,
Nonya's.
Nyonya style, kerabu shark's fin soup. No, kerabu shark's fin enough already.
Uncle, you're hungry already.
Yes, I'm hungry. It's dinner time already. Auntie cooking in the kitchen. Auntie cooking in the kitchen. I can smell already.
Okay, we have one more part left, and then you can go eat already.
Okay.
Yeah, final.
Yes.
Only a few more questions.
Okay.
So now I'll be moving on to the changing landscape of editing. So when you were telling us about how back in the day you did research and you have to go to the library and you have to go through all the newspapers and all. So how has like technological advances such as AI or digital editing tools affected, how does that affect your work as an editor?
Well, it speeds up my work, so I drink less coffee. Then I can actually quickly finish my work faster.
We can't put that in the report.
You finish your work faster, you can run out to have a coffee at the mama ID. Yeah. So yeah, it has sped up a lot of things. Yeah. The research can be, but you see, even if technology is on your side, searching for the information doesn't mean the information out there is accurate or is specifically to what you need to verify. So you still have to actually look for different sources to see that it meets. Yeah. Take for example, I do bird watching. I go out taking photographs of birds and everything. Sometimes the birds are not familiar to me, and I'm like, I know it's in that family of birds, but I don't know exactly. So how do you do that? Those days we were like, any, mini, miny, mo, start searching on the net. I think it's this bird. Oh yeah, it's not. But technology has given you the ability, Google, to drop in the photograph and look for images, similar images, which can give you the information on what birds. But getting the information does not mean you take it for granted. You actually use that information and you go verify again with reliable sources like for conservation side of it, there will be platforms where they have records of birds in different regions and continents. So throw it in and you see, because especially when you're dealing with, let's say, migratory birds, they're not local birds. Then you want to know where they are from and verify. Likewise, in news, you want to verify. Um, let's say it's a crime. The suspects, are they Malaysians? Are they foreigners? So those things you can't research, but you have to verify with the sources. But in terms of technology, you can actually, okay, sometimes it's like the police will use their own terminology, and then I'm like, what in the world is that? They will use short forms for all the penal code, the law. Yeah? They go like kanun keseksaan section what. Okay, because we are a news English platform, you're going to translate that. So technology helps you, but it doesn't give you the accurate citation of the law. So you go in and start searching. I think it's this. Let me check this, and then you pick a few places. Okay. ChatGPT and everything helps you a lot, but it doesn't sound right. It sounds so artificial. The moment, I mean, we can actually tell. Let's say a friend posts something and like, oh my god, this is full-fledged ChatGPT. Because the day before when she wrote on her own, it's all broken English. And suddenly, this English is like, wow, flowery, bombastic and very, it's like, this one ChatGPT. So you don't want that kind of impression coming from your readers. You are capable of writing it. Write it yourself. Maybe sometimes there are sentences that maybe you might want to jazz up a little bit. Throw that sentence in and see in ChatGPT or whatever platforms to see whether you can jazz it up a little bit. But don't overdo it. Especially when news. If you're writing feature stories or diary stories, it's fine. When you're writing about fashion and everything, you can play around. But news is straightforward. So researching with technology now, of course, it makes it a lot easier, but it can also get confusing.
Understand. So, based on all of that, what do you think the future of editing in media would look like, especially with the rise of new media such as blogs or podcasts or social media platforms?
Each has its own qualities and appeal. Yeah. So I wouldn't say one is better than the other. It depends on the audience because it caters to different audience, different flavors. Yeah. So I mean, you may want your ice blended coffee with cream on top and some sprinkles of chocolate on it. I may want it without cream and chocolate. So it depends. It depends on who you're writing for. The most important is to know your target audience before you write your story. Yeah. Does that answer? Short and sweet.
Mr. Teoh, can I ask
Yeah.
again, just to clarify about the technology advances we have now, would you say it's benefiting you more or it actually threatens the editorial processes?
It
Where is
doesn't
it leaning
threaten. I
towards?
think
Or is it a balance?
I think it's added value. I mean, technology can be in many forms, and there's always that element that you cannot take away, the human element. See? So it's that a camera cannot take its own photographs without a cameraman behind, a person behind it, right? So to get that photograph that you want, you have to be behind the camera. It's impossible for the camera to take what you want by just you thinking about it, and the camera goes, "I wish it was that." But it can. I think technology cannot replace people. Yeah, because it's people who determine where, in which direction a story or a presentation goes. Yeah, I remember those days. Now you guys are using for blogs, for blogging, and for the influencers are using a lot of cameras and Sony cameras and everything. Imagine in those days in the 90s, the first digital camera was a Sony Mavica with a 3.25 inch disc slotted in. Imagine how far we've come with now a small SD card. And those days, when you take the photograph, you hear the camera actually recording the image in the disc, and it goes saving technology. At that point, it served its purpose. But at that point, the constant from then until now, there's a person clicking the camera. So if you think, that's why I say technology will never replace the human element. Because from the first digital camera that I held on to until now, there's always that human finger pressing the shutter button. Yeah, and just like a keyboard, you have to type it before the computer starts thinking for you. Yeah.
Sorry, Mira, you can continue.
Yeah. You want to order your food also, you're going to type first, right? The computer the technology cannot predict what you want to eat, right? And order for you.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay. Sorry, Mira, you can continue.
No worries, no worries. So now we'll be moving on to the final part of
Okay.
our interview.
What's for dinner?
Yeah. Okay, so Mr. Teoh, what do you find most rewarding about your job as an editor?
That's a difficult question because I mean it depends on what you want to achieve. Yeah. I guess it's at the end of the day, knowing that not just as an editor but as a writer, knowing that what you're doing actually brings a change, actually contributes to a change to your surroundings. Yeah. And that's, I think, the ultimate goal. Yeah. I mean, there was one time where I left the mainstream media and I was not in the mainstream media, and you could see so many things all happening around you in your neighborhood, but there was no platform for you to actually raise it. Voila. I'll raise it to my colleagues in the mainstream media. I say, hey, can you help I write this? But knowing that I can actually do it in half an hour, highlighting the issue. So it's having that drop of water in the ocean, turning off the ripples. I think that's the most important. It's not about saving the world. It's saving what's around you first, changing what's around you first. It's just like now, it's sometimes having this platform is also giving you the opportunity to actually express yourself and share your views in the community. Just a few days ago, we were just with a mixed group of people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and we're having a drink. And then I just said, like, there needs to be succession planning in community groups, like Rukun Tetanggas and residents associations. We cannot be having current batch of people hanging on and having to hold the fort until they are in their 80s or 90s. They need the newer generation, people like you, need to come out and be part of the succession planning. Yeah, because yours it's you that we are going to hand it over to. So it's not something that I would write constantly in the publication, but it's something that I share and say it's important because there's so much that we have all done. We have a wealth of knowledge and experience that we can share with the younger generation and help them actually then take over the transition. So it's conversations like this, and of course I'm critical and say, I look at this chairman already burned out every year doing the same thing. I go to functions, Deepavali, Christmas, whatever. It's all the same flow, exercise a little bit and makan. Yeah, there I'm trying to figure out what photographs to take. Some of them have realized that I've changed the angle of my photographs. I do it differently, and I say, yeah lah, if every time there's a function, taking same angle, same people, also lah, I'm also bored already, you see. So, influencing change may not necessarily be just about writing it in SJECO, social media, but with the interaction you have with the community, you can influence change. I think that's the most, how would you say, how would you say that? The most satisfying, the most satisfying aspect of being in the line that I'm in, being able to share the thoughts, communicate it well, but also at the same time, sometimes subtly communicating change. Have I changed you? Are you joining? Are you signing up for any community groups now? And taking names now?
That depends. That depends on your answer for this last question, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a big question at the end.
This is the final question.
Okay.
So do you have any advice for those out there, and us students especially, who intend in pursuing towards editing, and could you share with us your advice, and what's good thing that you could learn throughout your career in editing, or anything within that industry?
This is going to be a long answer. Okay. I'm going to keep you here.
I'm excited.
I think when you ask that question, you're jumping the gun. Okay. I think we have enough keyboard warriors on social media who are just behind the desk, punching in, editing, writing, whatever. What we need are people who actually go out there and get their hands dirty and their feet wet, getting the story, getting to the truth first. In my case, it was coincidental, because I got challenged to start the first community newspaper in the country, and there was no template out there. I mean, of course, you get a lot of community platforms, newspapers in Europe, in Australia, in districts and boroughs all over. But in Malaysia, there wasn't. So I was challenged to actually start this. So starting this from scratch and learning the ropes. I'm a media person. I'm a journalist. I'm not a marketing person. But in the end, I actually ended up having to learn on a very steep curve how to sell ads, because it's not just enough to just write and the paper prints by itself. There's a cost to it, to things, publishing costs, your time, your expenses, your printing costs, and everything. I had to learn how to sell advertising on my own. Yeah. So that's why I say it's me, myself, and I. Sometimes when people see me with a camera, I say, "Hey, you working?" I say, "Oh no, actually the managing editor is off today. The editor is also off. Only the cameraman working today." Yes, he's holding the camera. No? So when I'm out in the mama shop, and people, "Hey, you're not off? Oh no, cameraman off today. Managing editor sitting here, goyang kaki, minum kopi. What is it you want to? Is it you want to buy ad, or you want to give me a story, kind of thing?" So the idea is invert the pyramid. Go out and get your stories first. Go out and experience what's out there first. So because it enriches you when you finally come to that stage. When people call you auntie. Auntie Sarah, Auntie Renee, Auntie June, and you're sitting behind the desk editing. At this stage, you can edit, but your experience and your knowledge is not there yet. So it makes editing actually very boring. I edit a few because I edit other people's writings because they are columnists who send it to me. In our publication, I have two columnists who are residents. I have a commercial advertiser columnist. I have the YBs, the two YBs also contributing stories, their comments and their updates on what's happening in Parliament or at the local level. So when the stories come in, I have to edit it. I have to check. And sometimes the YBs may go a little bit leaning towards touching on politics. I'm like, hey, politics can be toned down sikit lah. Or my columnist gets cheeky and starts playing around with words and delving into politics. And stop it. Can you please rewrite that part? Else I'm going to take that part out and your whole column goes haywire because there's no connectivity anymore. So those are the things that you need to check. But it is based on experience that then you'll be able to actually edit it well. So at your age, 19 or 20 now?
20.
20 was not bad. The young ladies are not sensitive about the age. Uncle here is sensitive about age. Go out there, experience it, learn as much as you can, absorb as much as you can, take in the variety of entertainment news, hard news, soft news, gossips, listen, filter. From there you gain the experience to be able to actually sit down behind the desk and start editing your own stories or somebody else's stories. Editing your own story, you won't see the mistakes on it. There will be times when we send it for print and the print comes out and I'm like, how come I didn't see it? Typo error or something like this and that. You cannot be perfect, right? But we try and minimize as much as we can. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Very much, yes.
She's afraid I'll keep her here until midnight.
No, we know you're hungry too.
Ya, okay, tahan wan. Tahan wan. So your conclusion?
So I think that marks the end of our interview.
You are into media, or you are is this part of your course, or you are in the media mass comm or something else degree?
It's part of our media studies course.
Media studies course. The degree is what degree is this?
Media studies.
Media studies.
Yes, Bachelor of Media Studies.
Okay, media studies. That's something new. I've not heard of that. Because it's mostly mass comm.
Yeah.
I think it basically
It is
is mass
quite
comm, but in University Malaya they just call it media studies.
They want to make it sound different.
A little fancy, yeah.
Because in US it's mass comm, right? In US it's mass comm, and most universities will be mass comm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, enjoy the course, because once you come out, it's a different world.
Yeah.
The lecturers will say, "Hey, Mr. Tiffany, you're saying that." but pick up skills along the way. Be independent. Pick up photography skills. Learn, make mistakes, because you never know. Because you see, the picture paints 1,000 words. Yeah. And one better way than having a photograph that you took yourself to help you with your story, the story that you want. So that's why with my photographs, I most of the time I do it myself. Because I know when I go in somewhere, I am looking for a certain angle. If I ask somebody to do it, the photograph will come out differently. Yeah, and I won't illustrate what I want to stress. So I go in and look for my pictures, even if I have to crawl, squat down, kneel down, whatever, to get that angle, I will do it. Yeah, because then it already enhances the message. Because people will just capture the image first. Yeah. And then only read it. Yeah. It's all stressed. Now pick up photography. Okay, handphone can also be photography. Yeah. Using a lot of people say, because you use a Chuck gave me a camera. I said, yeah, this when I'm outside there, I'm using a headphone. Okay, you don't see it. So I use the handphone a lot to actually take photographs. So and to like today, it's just handphone. Go out there, I know what I'm looking for. It's not a spinning object which the handphone cannot capture. I just go and pick up the pictures that I want to strike home the point. So pick up the skills along the way, not just editing. Photography is very important. Something that I was told almost 30 years ago by the photo chief in the Star. I know any news guys actually telling me, you like photography, carry on doing it. Photography will stick with you all your life and will prove to be very useful for you later on in life. I'm still holding a camera. Yeah. I've not let go of the camera. And I still remember what it was. Yeah.
That's nice. That's okay. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Teoh, for
You're most welcome.
all the guidance, all the and your time. You know, you really bring us to experience what you experienced just by telling the stories. I feel like after this, we are actually more. We ending the session with actually more knowledge about editorial processes and the idea of journalism also. And yeah, thank you so much.
Yep.
But and I'm not gonna include this in the video. But after this, I'm still thinking like, no, I don't think this is my kind of career. But I'm so glad that this is your interest. I feel like it's very stressful. I feel like it's very stressful, and I respect you so much for being in there. That's
Journalism or media studies is what the make of it. Yeah. What's what make of it? It's not about what they tell you that you should be doing. You putting your creativity out there and filling up the boxes but always think out of the box. Never take for granted but never just take as goes through what people tell you. Think out of the box very far and enjoy the process. Yeah.
okay. I think I'll need some more exploring to do for that.
Yeah, just drop me a line anytime. The WhatsApp is on, so Rini has my number.
Mr. Teoh.
Always drop me a line if you have any inquiries or if you want to try journalism out there on the streets of Surabaya. Surabaya very dangerous, yeah. Nanti uncle people they bring umbrella, you better do umbrella. It's not about me supporting kali-kali pada auntie bring umbrella you and weapon you. So if you want to try that, come to Surabaya. Yeah. Then I'll ask you to do a review of the umbrella that they are pointing you with. Something different. Yeah. So anytime, if you have any inquiries or anything, let me know.
Would love that. Thank you so much. Do you guys have anything you guys want to say before we end the session?
Yeah.
You guys have anything you want to say?
No, it's very enough for the news.
Itulah. And baik-baik kita ya.
Probably.
And right, this is like zero would be.
I'll just skim through it.
Yeah. So anytime you need advice, like no problem.
Thank you so much.
You have an evening and I have a weekend.
Yeah, you have a good
Okay.
dinner.
Bye.